Along with eating humble pie, the Arizona Wildcats left LA singing rapper Kendrick Lamar's hit song, Sit Down, Be Humble. Can the Cats wash away the taste of a bad defeat? The pain from the FBI sting operation into college basketball corruption seemed like it would never, ever stop hurting for Wildcat fans. Now, 2 months later, can Arizona still have its one shining moment? Plus, why are so many quick to blame Muslims for terrorist attacks, but slow to identify non-Muslims as terrorists? A Tucson Muslim leader speaks out. These stories and more next on this week's 520. Well, it's week 4 of the 520. Welcome to the show. I'm Steve Nunez.
And I'm Marty Mott of the 4th. Thanks for joining us.
And I have a wager to settle. I owe you a basket of French fries for that devastating loss on Saturday, right?
Thank you. I'm just glad to be here once again.
Did it to me again. All right, well, if you're still chewing on Rolaids to relieve your heartburn from Saturday's loss, you're not alone. In a wild game at the Coliseum, the USC Trojans held off a late rally to beat the Wildcats 49-35. The Cats were down 22 points in the second half, but they never quit. They never gave up. They had the momentum and stormed right back to tie the game at 35. Khalil Tate bottled up in the first half, lived up to some of his hype in the second half. He ended up with 161 yards on the ground, but he also lived up to the other side of his billing. Tate threw 2 interceptions in the final 8 minutes of the game. The loss snapped Arizona's 4-game winning streak. USC is now all alone at the top of the Pac-12 South. Arizona, meanwhile, drops out of the AP Top 25. And I don't know if it was just me or not, but it just seemed like it was such a frustrating game because it seemed like it took Rich Rod so long to make adjustments on offense, especially trying to help out Khalil Tate in the first half.
Exactly. It looked like they had a game plan going into the game, and it was a little slow to get up off the ground. And when you have a guy like Khalil Tate, Rich Rodriguez was trying to use Khalil Tate as the haymaker when in reality he's the jab. He kept trying to set up and set up and set up. SC wouldn't fall for that setup, and Tate was left with a 2-yard gain. Back in the second half, he didn't limit his touches. He let him do exactly what he needed to do, and he was a magical man with a lot of the breaks out of the pocket, a lot of the passes downfield.
And it seemed like in the second half, compared to the first half, we started throwing the ball to the side, opening up the field a little bit more, and throwing the ball over the DB's heads to at least break it up so that they wouldn't come up to the line and stop Khalil Tate from running.
And he's got such a bad habit of breaking out of the pocket and looking downfield instead of looking to the sidelines, looking to his checkdowns. But he's a sophomore. He's an underclassman, so if he could fix that little mistake, he could honestly be a first-round pick.
Well, quite honestly, overall, for the second half, I was more impressed with Khalil Tate than Sam Darnold, who's considered one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
I honestly was too. I mean, Sam Darnold, he was a little minute. He was a little timid. I think I expected a lot more out of him.
And quickly, we talked about Arizona's defense. Love them because they're fast, they're quick to the ball, they play with a lot of intensity, but giving up 642 yards against USC. Second game in a row, they've given up more than 600 yards. Not good.
And we said that on the Week 3 show. We said that if the defense can't keep up with the offense, if they keep getting in these shootouts and the offense gets slow off to the ground, that might be where these losses come from.
All right, let's look at this upcoming week's game against Oregon State. Arizona taking on the Beavers. Kickoff is at 8:15 at Arizona Stadium. We're looking at a pretty good matchup, even though Oregon State is 1-8, 0-6 in the Pac-12. They are quick to the ball on defense. What do you expect?
I expect the Cats to fix their pathetic run defense. Honestly, don't be afraid to stack the box. They were going 3 down line. Of course, they're in a 3-3-5, but they were going 3 down linemen, 2 in the box. And every single time Ronald Jones II, he would cut back and he would take off because they had left no backside protection, that nobody was there on the cutback lanes. So I'm hoping they fix that.
All right, let's go ahead and stay on with football. How big of a problem are concussions in football? Well, for years, the NFL turned a blind eye to it, but we now know concussions are also killing high school players. Last month, Phoenix Moon Valley's Carlos Sanchez collapsed on the field after hitting his head on the ground. The 16-year-old died 2 days later from blunt force trauma. The 520 has also learned former Arizona quarterback Anu Solomon, who transferred to Baylor to play his senior year, suddenly quit grad school due to medical issues. Baylor head coach Matt Ruley confirmed Solomon suffered concussion-like symptoms, and that is exactly why he left school. Now, you played football at a time when Junior Seau, San Diego Chargers linebacker, took his own life, and autopsy reports later ruled that he had suffered extremely major damage to his brain. Has anything changed since then?
I honestly think it has. As a player, I was at the beginning of all of the CTE concussion protocol, and as a coach and as a fan of the game, they've done so much with the rules and everything like that. Even as a coach, they're teaching these young kids, these young men, to tuck their heads when they're going down for passes so that their heads don't yank all the way against the field. They're doing a great job of educating us, putting in new protocols, procedures. I honestly think they're doing a great job.
Well, of course, today we have better protective gear, better helmets with more padding and everything. But, you know, when it comes to football, there are the injuries that are well visible: broken arms, broken shoulders, dislocated ankles. We saw Chicago Bears, Miller dislocate his knee and everything. But there are those silent injuries, like head injuries, that don't get diagnosed and are really tough to detect.
And they even tell us as players and as coaches when we're in the game of football that it is nearly impossible to even get to 70 to 80% preventative from a concussion. It is nearly impossible to get that close. How good of a job can we do? I think they're doing a great job still.
Well, back to Solomon. His freshman year, he threw for, I believe, over 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns. Okay, led Arizona to a Pac-12 South title. His sophomore year started off the season 3-0, and then against UCLA, got hit really hard, had a concussion, out, has never been the same. So the impact does have a lasting effect.
Of course. Yeah, it's still a major injury. It could still put you out for the season. I still think, just to sum it up, I think they're doing a great job.
All right, moving on to basketball now. There's no doubt the FBI investigation into college basketball corruption and the arrest of Arizona assistant coach Book Richardson, accused of taking bribe money to pay top recruits, will have implications on Arizona's program. But that could take a year or more, depending on how fast the wheels of justice turn. Plus, this year's team is so talented and athletic, it's already giving fans a case of amnesia. Just 2 months ago, fans were choking back tears on a promising season that seemed over even before it got started. Now, they're born-again believers with a renewed hope for cutting down the nets to the tune of one shining moment. In 2 blowout exhibition games, including Sunday against Chico State, the Wildcats have made fans forget about the FBI investigation's curtain of distraction. And then, lo and behold, what did we learn just minutes ago? That a grand jury in New York indicted Book Richardson on charges. What do you think this is going to have an impact with the season starting this Friday against Northern Arizona University?
I don't think it'll necessarily have an impact on this season, just except for bad branding. But what's bad branding to a juggernaut program like the Cats? I think the implications and repercussions will come from when everybody starts getting charged, the NCAA starts taking away scholarships, limiting recruits, stuff like that. So this is a problem for the Cats 3 or 4 years down the road.
Now, we're also hearing at least 3 people who were indicted, including an agent, an accountant, and a representative from Adidas, are all working out a plea deal behind the scenes on the FBI investigation so that they could get lesser charges. So I really think that could have an impact on the direction of what's going to happen with Arizona. But when you look at this in the bigger scheme, I agree with you in the sense where it doesn't look like Book really did as much as other schools.
He's still down here,
Yeah, 20,000 is probably not a drop in the bucket compared to what other schools are going to probably be facing.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's switch gears now to a more serious topic. After a terrorist suspect drove a rental truck down a bike path in Manhattan, killing 8 people, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Tucson immediately condemned the attack. Umar Shahid, a spokesperson for the local chapter, told me he expected the usual backlash blaming the Islam religion, but he agreed to sit down with the 520 in an effort to help people understand that radical Islamic terrorists are the exception to the rule in the Islamic faith.
We believe a Muslim can't do this kind of act because these are not the teachings of Islam.
What are the teachings of Islam?
The teachings of Islam are basically peace, love. Islam does not teach you to do any kind of act which belongs to, like terrorism or, like to harm somebody. Even in Quran, God clearly says, if you kill one innocent person, means you kill the whole humanity. So how a Muslim can do this kind of act in the name of Islam?
How many times have you heard, not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslims? And what's your reaction to that?
Yeah.
In regards not only to this terrorist attack, but to numerous others.
Numerous others, yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, this is, like very unfortunate thing. Whoever comes out like any terrorist attack, it comes out that this person is a Muslim. The problem is education. They are being radicalized. They are using the name of Islam, and they are basically, committing these kind of crimes.
Do you agree that maybe the Muslim community, the religion of Islam, has a real public relation problem?
I think yes, because due to the increased numbers of these terrorist attacks, plus, like the media, I would say, people like our new generation is just listening that Islam or Muslims, they are terrorists. And this thing is creating a huge gap between Muslims and the other communities.
Do you blame Americans or non-Muslims for thinking that way?
No, I don't blame this thing because this is a society where they live in. We Muslims are afraid of going out and speak out.
But why do you think Americans are also afraid of Muslims?
Because of it has changed the whole environment. The media has changed the whole environment. And these terrorists have changed the whole environment. Because of this thing, everybody thinks that Muslims are terrorists. No, this is not the problem.
Well, let me ask you this, just because you just mentioned this. Have you ever seen or witnessed anyone become radicalized and just transform into taking their prayers to a level of becoming radical?
Any person in my life?
In your life?
No. We would love to come out. We would love to show you the mosque. You can just come in and, like, feel it. Yeah. Talk to me, talk to any Muslim, and just learn about Muslims, Muslim faith. What is Islam? What Islam teaches you? Does Islam tells you to kill people? No.
And quickly, just want to get your thoughts on this, because a very, very interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. I personally think if we're asking the question, is there a PR problem with the Muslim and Islamic community? I think that problem has stemmed from everybody except the Muslim and Islamic community making generalizations and preconceived notions about it. So all of those things, all those generalizations have come from everybody else, and they're forcing the Muslim and Islamic community to tiptoe around their everyday lives. That's bad. That's terrible.
Well, this conversation started off as just a quick interview that turned into a 45-minute conversation. We're going to post that online so that everyone can see the entire context of this conversation. Moving on to politics, while Democrats are jumping for joy, Republicans are not so happy. The McSally train is jumping tracks. Arizona Congresswoman Martha McSally told colleagues she's running for Senate to fill Jeff Flake's vacated seat next year. But as the 520 recently found out, Republicans saw this train coming down the tracks the minute Senator Flake announced he's quitting Congress.
Many of us have been on the McSally train for years and months and years and months. That would, if she decides to get in the race, then it basically turns the House seat over to a Democrat. So I think many of us would prefer that everybody sort of stay in their lane.
And I think overall, the reason why Republicans aren't so happy is because this now, instead of winning 2 seats and keeping one in the House and winning pretty much for sure win in the Senate, this opens the door for Dems to win a House seat.
I definitely think so, it does. But if we're in the conversation of replacing Senator Flake, I don't think Martha McSally's in any way going to do that. She's more or less just going to be a nice little distraction, and she's just going to be a puppet for everybody upstairs.
Well, so far, you know, Ward ran against McCain in 2016 in the primary, and everyone was excited because she only lost by about 11 percentage points, I believe. And they thought putting her against Flake that she probably had a really good chance, and she was actually polling pretty good on that. But when you look at McSally jumping into this race, it looks like she probably now is a front runner only because of the fact that she has done everything. She's walked the talk, so to speak, for President Donald Trump.
Everything.
Because on everything, from tax reform to healthcare to immigration to building the wall, everything. So it doesn't seem like it's
not much of a replacement. It's more just she has a schedule she's looking to adhere to. She's not replacing anybody.
All right, let's jump right into a new segment we're calling Do We Care? After all, we're not just a sports show. We do break down community issues, big and small, but sometimes we just have to go there, ultimately say, do we care? So first up, Tucson's new bike share program could be the answer to our public transportation woes, right? Well, the city is in the process of installing 36 docking stations around downtown and the University of Arizona. The price, $8 for unlimited rides within 24 hours. But the bikes will need to be docked every 30 minutes to avoid additional fees. So, gotta ask the question, Artie, do we care?
Do we care? Yes, I care primarily because when the bus fares were raised 25 cents, there was an uproar in the underprivileged inner city. So if we're asking these people to pay $8 on top of for 30 minutes and additional fees, there's no way anybody in the inner city is gonna pay that.
Look, I don't care. I'm all about going green, but look, what I just mentioned was the docking stations are along Sunlink line. I'd rather pay $4 than $8, and I'd rather get there faster. Docking every 30 minutes is ridiculous. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time.
Incentives, I guess. And next up, it's a new push to ban the box in Arizona State's job application that is giving people who have been convicted of a felony more of a level playing field, so to speak, in the job hunt. Sounds okay in theory, maybe. But do we care if the person handling our Social Security information at the DMV is a convicted felon? So, Mr. Nunez, do we care?
Yes, I do care. And here's why I care. I don't want a convicted felon handling my personal information. Look what all DMV offers on your driver's license. Your address, your driver's license number, and you know what? If they have access to my Social Security number, I get that they paid their price and have paid their dues. But I still don't want someone who's a convicted felon handling my personal information with all the fraud theft going around.
And personally, I do care. I do care primarily because I hate to shatter the glass for anybody, but like I guarantee that you've already swiped your card and handed your credit card to a convicted felon. There's over 300 companies in Tucson alone that hire convicted felons.
All right, Arizona is supposedly making progress in the fight against poverty. Poverty rate is now at 16.4%, 1 point lower than the year before. But more than 1 million people are still living below the poverty line in Arizona. That's 2.5 percentage points above the national average. So, do we care that the poverty line is going?
Yes, I care because it just shows how much of a cap there is on employment in Tucson. Of course, there's a lot of degreeless people. There's a lot of underqualified people getting these jobs. So they're forced to take the wages that they're forced to take whatever they can get. So how are they supposed to pull themselves out of poverty when there's situations like this?
I care too, and the reason is because it's personal for me. I grew up poor, and as the saying goes, it takes money to make money. And when you grow up poor, it's really hard to pull yourself out of poverty if you're trying to make money, seriously, or start a business or do anything. So, yeah, I do care.
Exactly. Governor Ducey wants to make our interstate rest stops way cooler. We're talking restaurants, coffee shops, maybe even gas stations, taken after East Coast states like New Jersey, New Hampshire. But turning Arizona highways into glorified food courts may not actually make the state any money at all. Steve, do we care?
No, I don't care, and here's why. Arizona Lottery is supposed to pay for all these improvements. We should not be getting into the business of this stuff because you know where the money's gonna go, not where it's supposed to go.
Exactly.
So, no, I don't care.
Do I care? I personally don't care at all. I mean, I don't foresee this making the state any money at all. Of course, the capitalistic system that Arizona has enforced onto everything on the small business, I don't see this going anywhere.
We're out of time on this one, but I'm going to make this really quick. Arizona recently earned a B grade on pretrial justice compared to the nation as a whole, clocking in at a disappointing D. So the question is, do we care when it comes to pretrial justice services that Arizona earned a B grade?
I care primarily because I know there's such a good old boy environment with the law enforcement here in Tucson. So just little DUI traffic stops are taking 2-3 years just to see a trial date. That's of course something very common around here.
I don't care. It's disappointing that Arizona earned a B. I would rather see Arizona and all politicians concentrate on funding education. Then there wouldn't be so much crime and we wouldn't have to worry about recidivism. And guess what? Problem solved.
There we go. I guess it's just
worry about that
priorities.
Let's worry about education getting a B grade in funding as opposed to pretrial justices. Absolutely ridiculous. Well, you've heard the phrase, oh, no, you didn't. Well, here at the 520, we're not afraid to tell it like it is with, oh, yes, we did. All right. What do you have?
Oh, yes, I did, just primarily because there's been talks and there's been lots of talks and rumors about trading Larry Fitzgerald to a Super Bowl contender just so that he can get a nice big old ring on his finger. I personally think that the Cardinals, just if they're going to do a favor to Larry Fitzgerald, what they need to do is tie up all their loose ends, trim all their fat, because they have exactly what it takes. They have a decent quarterback who's on the bench, but for future, of course, decent quarterback, a great run game, especially with David Johnson and AP coming back together, good defense. They have exactly what they need to do this favor that they're going to do to him.
I agree with you on this because I think Larry Fitzgerald is just a class act, on the field and off the field. The guy shows up to every charity event. He has his own charity events. He never turns down a kid for an autograph. You got to love the guy. And the fact that he's been so successful on the field, you almost want to just see him walk away and retire with a ring because history is going to look back and say, oh, he did this, 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 this. He had this many receptions, but he didn't win a ring.
Yeah, of course.
So that could be a knock on him.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's my, oh, yes, we did. Okay, so we just learned a couple of minutes ago that UCLA, who's traveling in China, 3 of its players, including LaMelo Ball, got arrested for stealing Louis Vuitton bags at a store. Okay, we're talking about one player, Ball, whose dad, LeVar, has
enough to go around.
Enough to go around.
Yeah.
And his brother just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. And the guy has to steal? I mean, honestly, I think this is just as big for the UCLA program as it is for the FBI scandal hovering over some of the universities around the nation right now, including Arizona. This is embarrassing, and John Wooden must be rolling in his grave right now.
Definitely.
It's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
All right, bottom line, our goal is to tell it like it is because it's all about giving voice to opinions even if you don't agree. I'm Steve Nunez.
And I'm Marty Mata IV. Join us next week on the 520.